go through this. I'm not going to do all of these, obviously, but I'm going to just kind of reiterate. Sometimes I feel like this is a nightmare doing this like this, but like I'm going to maybe word it in a different way this time because we all learn differently, and I'm not just going to like explain it exactly the same every time. So this time we're going to kind of look at it in a different way. So we're going to start on the side here where it says one-step equations. You can see where it's like 1 and 2. So from like 1 through 6 up this way are the one step, and then the 2-step follow are the rest of the problems. If you look down towards the bottom, you can see that these kind of get different looking. That's something that you haven't seen before. So I don't like to just give you something you've never seen before. I'm going to explain this to you. Now, first we're going to do is fill in the blanks here. So if you remember from before, the one thing I told you, I wrote it up here in my own writing here, where we're going to add or subtract first, and then we're going to divide to solve for x. So under one-step equations, I did say you're going to add or subtract first, but how we know whether or not we're going to add or subtract is this, right? You can remember that if we're looking at number 1 and we have x plus 15 equals -3, we want to isolate x or get x by itself. So we're going to have to add or subtract 15 here. And we know we're going to subtract 15 here because it's called what? It's the inverse operation of adding, right? So your answer is x equals -18. And right here, it's saying use blank blank to solve. The answer here is the inverse operation. We don't want to lose the vocabulary and like learning exactly like why we're doing what we're doing. So you go to the operation that's given, you're going to do the inverse to solve. So if it's add, we're going to subtract to solve. Same thing for like, let's do one that's a little bit harder on the one step. By fractions, multiply by the what? Okay, someone needs to get in here. Hold on one second. Hopefully this doesn't mess us up. All right, if they're late, they're late. Okay, so for fractions, if we have 1/3 x equals -1.5, we have to get x by itself. If you can remember, we do something where we flip the fraction here and multiply both sides by, starts with an R. Anyone knows it, you can unmute and yell it at me. What's this word? For fractions, we're going to multiply by, remember this word? The reciprocal. So if it's a fraction coefficient, or if it's 1/3 times x equals -1.5, for fractions, multiply by the reciprocal. So reciprocal means we take the fraction and just flip it. So if it's 1/3, it becomes 3/1. So we multiply both sides by 3/1, this side by 3/1. That's going to give us x equals -4.5. Because 3/1, which is just 3, times -1.5, use a calculator, -4.5. Always use a calculator if you can. Okay, I'm not going to do a bunch of the one step. This should be something that we definitely know how to do. Now, if you're listening to me talk right now and you're like, okay, she's saying I should definitely know how to do this, and I definitely do not know how to do this, please send me like a message aside after in Schoology, and you and I will set up a time one-on-one to make sure we know how to do this. I don't care to do that at all. Okay. All right. Now, two-step equations. These are the ones that we talked about here, where you add or subtract first, and then you divide by x. That's what you do for two-step. Now, I said earlier I was going to like explain it in a different way, and I'm going to explain it in a way that was explained to me once. Now, this looks familiar to us, obviously. PEMDAS, we do order of operations for years and years. Now, what you want to think about is what we're used to doing is going parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, right? Now, you notice that this arrow is going backwards. So that's like, what are you doing? My whole life, you told us to go this way. I want you to think about a two-step equation like you're trying to solve for x. So normally, if you had a value for x, you would go parentheses, exponents, like we practice forever. But when you have a missing variable, or you have a variable and a missing number, you kind of have to go backwards. So that's why this arrow is going this way. Meaning, when I said at the beginning of the last note section, you're going to add or subtract first. That's like if you're looking at PEMDAS, you're going to add or subtract first. So this is when you're doing an equation that has a variable and there are two steps, you have to go backwards. So that's kind of new, and that's not something we're used to. But it's like opening a present. Like we have to like open it, like go in reverse. So the first thing we're going to do is undo addition and subtraction. you know, that's the same thing as what I said before. Like you're going to add or subtract first. But another way to just phrase it is to undo addition or subtraction. Again, I'm not trying to confuse you. I just think some people, everyone learns in different ways, and sometimes things just click for people in another way. So I want you to think about it in that way. Like you're going reverse PEMDAS for two-step equations. So you want to undo addition or subtraction first. So if we're looking at just this one that's like closest to me here at number 9. So we have 12 equals 4 minus n. Okay, we want n by itself, right? So we got to bring this 4 to the other side. So if this is 4 with no sign, it's understood that this is a positive 4. So this is like a plus 4. So to get 4 over here, we're going to have to undo addition or subtraction. So we're going to have to subtract 4 here, like this. So that's going to leave us with 12 minus 4 is 8, and 8 equals negative n. Okay, we're not finished because we can't have our variable negative. So this is where we're like, okay, what is she doing? We haven't seen this before. What do I do now? What you want to think about is, if you remember, when you don't have a number in front of your variable, it's understood to be 1. We've talked about this before. So this problem is actually looks like this. 8 equals negative 1n. So if you go back up here, if you had this problem, you would divide both sides by negative 3. So on this one, we're just going to do the same thing. You're going to divide by the coefficient. The coefficient in this problem is negative 1. This one's kind of weird. So negative 8 equals n. So your answer to that one is negative 8. This one is taking a step up. You can already feel that this is a little bit harder than what you did before. You kind of have to stretch your brain a little bit on these. The second part of this, which is where we had to divide here, you have to then undo multiplication and division. Let's do a couple more of these. How about number 8? So we have negative x over 2 minus 10 equals 1. So the first thing we want to do is undo addition or subtraction, or we're going to add or subtract first. Here's our variable number. So we have negative or minus 10 here. So if it's minus 10, we want to do the inverse. So we're going to add 10 to both sides, like that. That's going to leave us with negative x over 2 equals 11. Now, if you have negative x over 2, to get x by itself, you multiply by the reciprocal, which is negative 2 over 1. All this cancels, and you're left with x equals negative 22. I'm going to pause here. If you want to unmute and say, what the heck, now's the time. Okay, I'll keep going. Let me pick another hard one. Before you panic on these, we're going to work on these together, but let's go ahead and do number 12 too, because it's reversed and looks kind of funny. Okay, so we've got 12 equals 15 minus 3/4 x. We're going to add or subtract first. We got to find the number that's not with x. So 3/4 is with x. We've got this 15 right here that's not with x. It's a positive 15. There's no symbol here. There's no operation here. So that means we have to subtract 15 from both sides. Got to do the opposite. So that's going to leave us with negative 3 equals negative 3/4 x. When you have a fraction as a coefficient, you're going to multiply by the reciprocal. This comes from up here. So we're going to flip that number. It's going to be negative 4/3, negative 4/3, like this. Now, to multiply this, it's just like multiplying fractions, which I know we don't like fractions, but when you're multiplying them, it's super easy because all you do is multiply the top and multiply the bottom. So on this, if you do negative 4 times negative 3, we get positive 12, and 3 times 1 is 3. So in this one, x equals 12 over 3, which is 4. Okay. Let's go back over to the side over here. If you feel like I'm going too fast, I would never normally go this fast, but I have to keep this short and it's already 15 minutes, so I'm going fast here. Okay, so what about this? These are the what if situations where things are always looking different. Everything, it's math, so it's not going to be straightforward all the time. On these, there are assumed parentheses in the numerator. So that means that like on the top part of these fractions, those are like parentheses, okay? You must get rid of what is in the denominator first. So if we're looking at this problem and we're like, okay, well, it's a two-step because we have a plus here. What's going on with this? You've got the variable on the top and then a denominator that's just a number. In this case, you have to undo the division first. You have to get rid of this 5. And to do that, you're going to multiply it by the denominator. So you're going to multiply both sides by what's on the bottom. So on this one, we'll multiply this side by 5. We'll multiply this side by 5. Now, when you multiply by 5 here, that's going to cancel these 5s. So that makes the x plus 7 come down by itself. So now you have -3 times +5, which is -15. So now we have just a normal one-step equation where we have to get x by itself. So we will subtract 7 from both sides, and x will be -22. This should feel new and weird. So if you're like panicking, don't, because I promise you we're going to do this like a lot. And I'll go over it a lot, and you can rewatch the videos a lot. And this is obviously not ideal, but God willing, you'll be here on the 19th, and we'll get back on track. I know this is hard to do when we're not in person, but we're making the best of it. And the 17 of you that are here are just dolls. I love you for doing this because I know this is not ideal. Okay, I'll do number 16 too. Now, I know these are hard, but I want you to just kind of like look at the way we did it and try to do it by yourself. You'll also notice that this week you don't have a ton of assignments. I literally had another worksheet, and I just thought, you know, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let you work on this one, the ones that we didn't do, by yourself, and then we'll go over it and I'll grade it. And if you need one-on-one help, please do not be embarrassed. Please send me a message and say, I need one-on-one help, and I will schedule a live lesson with just you. I want to do everything I can to help everyone in any way I can in this world that we're living in. But I am going to do number 16, and then I'm going to let you go. So if you're feeling like this is lasting forever, I'm sorry. Okay. So we've got -7 equals 5 plus 8 over 4. Now, if it looks like this and you have a number on the denominator, the first thing you have to do is to get rid of that number first. And what you're actually doing is multiplying by its reciprocal. But really what you need to think about is, I don't need to know exactly what's happening. I just need to know the steps to get the answer. So if we have 4 on the bottom, we're going to multiply both sides by 4. It's really 4 over 1, but just 4. So if we multiply 4 times -7, we get -28. And this has canceled that 4. So now we have -28 equals 5 plus a. Now we just have another like baby one-step equation. We want a by itself. 5 is positive, so we'll subtract 5 from both sides. That will cancel, and your answer, if you can see that, is -33 equals a. Okay, we've done half of these together. The only thing that you have to do this week is finish this page and make sure you get your Mathia finished. I haven't put the grades in yet, so if you're still trying to do that, if you're having trouble with your Mathia, I've got several messages. What I do when your Mathia isn't working is I just literally give you credit. I will not give you credit for it, but I scoot you ahead. So if you're stuck or it's being weird or it's too hard, just let me know. I'm not trying to be nasty. Also, try to get back to my